The art of the return is something that's really unique to the world of professional wrestling. And 2023 did have a bunch of shocking, fun returns, although not as many as 2022, because 2022 was the year of returns. It seemed like everyone and their dog came back to the WWE in 2022. Still, we had some great returns in 2023, however, some were better than others. So today we're going to be tier ranking every major WWE 2023 return from Hall of Fame all the way down to trash. And I'll rank these based on the shock value of the return and what that superstar contributed after returning as well. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, you're gonna fall in love with this channel because we upload daily wrestling content. One thing before I get started, I'm not gonna include like super niche one-off returns, because otherwise I'd include like 35 different people that came back at Raw 30 this year, because that had like a Jimmy Hart, a Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, DX, Kurt Angle. Those don't count in these. All right, now without any further ado, let's jump into the ranking. The Royal Rumble this year had a lot of awesome marquee returns, even if many of them weren't particularly shocking returns. Now, one of those was the return of Asuka, who wasn't gone for too long, but she was gone long enough for me to want to include her in this list. But what made me want to include her on this list is the fact that she came back with a completely different look and basically an entirely different persona as well, with what people call her Kana gimmick. And to me, this was a really important return for the women's division, because at that time, I really felt like the women's division was missing something. I think it was missing somebody as chaotic as Asuka, and she made a great return at the Royal Rumble. She got a huge pop when her music hit. She got a huge pop when she removed the dragon mask. She did really well in the Royal Rumble, and her contributions afterwards were fantastic. She went on to have numerous title runs. She would have a fantastic run as WWE Women's Champion, a part of War Games, perennial main eventer. So she had a lot to contribute after her return as well, which is going to help bump her up this list. So Asuka returning to the WWE, we're going to be putting into the great category. Next up, we had the return of Chelsea Green. I haven't done that in a couple of months, okay? You had to let me get that out of my system, okay? Chelsea Green also returned at this year's Women's Royal Rumble, to the shock of everybody. This wasn't some sort of rumor. This wasn't something that was leaked necessarily beforehand. It was just a nice, shocking return to the Royal Rumble. And that was something that Rumble kind of desperately needed, because both the men's and the women's Rumbles didn't really have any sort of like shock return or shock re-debut aside from Chelsea Green. So simply because of the fact that she was the most shocking return at the Royal Rumble, she's going to be getting some good points here. But it's not just about how good her return was at the Royal Rumble, it's how good her performance has been in the WWE, and I dare say that it's been absolutely fantastic. To me, Chelsea Green is the anchor point of the women's mid-card division, and she is at this point where she is so entertaining on screen that they can give her anything and she'll be fun and she'll be entertaining and she'll be must-watch TV, whether she's in the women's tag team division, whether she's going for the Money in the Bank briefcase, whether she's a main eventer, it doesn't matter. To me, Chelsea Green is now a mainstay of WWE, and it all started with that great return at the Royal Rumble. In a year where there weren't too many shocking returns, I have to put Chelsea Green's return to the WWE amongst the greats of this list, and I'm going to be actually putting her return to the WWE into the Hall of Fame category. It just added such a nice breath of fresh air to the women's division, and I think that she's going to be contributing a lot to the women's division and wrestling as a whole for the next several years. Next, we have the return of that year's Men's Royal Rumble winner, Cody Rhodes, a return that was annoyingly pre-announced. I hate that. I hate when the WWE tells us when people are coming back. I understand why they do it. I understand that it's to demand eyeballs on the thing that you want eyeballs on, but still, it removes a lot of that shock and a lot of that awe that comes when you have a return. Cody Rhodes was pre-announced well before the Rumble, and we knew that he was going to be coming out number 30 as well, which he did, which was underwhelming to have him come out at number 30 when we knew he was the last one left. I think it would have been better served had he come out at 29, so that at the very least there was a little bit of suspense as to who was come out in number 30. But once all 29 men were out and we knew Cody wasn't back yet because he was pre-announced, we knew that the 30th entrance and the last entrant was going to be Cody Rhodes. So I don't like the way that they delivered the shock return of Cody Rhodes. And I say shock in air quotes because there was no shock to it. However, he came back, won the Royal Rumble, and then went on to become the top babyface in the entire company. So that's good to have back in the WWE, even though it's one of those things that we expected to happen at some point or another. Still, we have to acknowledge the fact that he came back from a nasty injury, an injury that maybe just looks worse than it was, because he came back fairly quickly considering how disgustingly looking that injury was. So the fact that he was able to come back from injury as quickly as he did, he won the Rumble and went right back to the top of the main event. It's somebody that we sorely needed as well. So I am going to be putting Cody Rhodes into the great category. However, I felt the need that we needed to criticize the way that it was pre-announced. I didn't like that. Next, we had the returns of John Cena. He technically had 3 returns, but I'm going to include him in just one. He had the return right before WrestleMania. Again, a pre-announced return. That was annoying, but that return was fantastic because it led to one of the all-timer John Cena promos of all time, where he absolutely manhandled poor Austin Theory with words, to the point where I don't think that Austin Theory has properly recovered ever since he was eviscerated verbally by John Cena. John Cena would go on to lose that match at WrestleMania, but then he would come back again at Money in the Bank to pretend to tell London that they might maybe sort of one day, if they were to pay enough money, get WrestleMania from the WWE. It's a lie. You know, they're not going to London unless London pays up, and then disappeared, and then came back one more time to be part of like this payback program, Fastlane, have a feud with the Bloodline, help put over LA Knight, which was nice. It was nice to have Cena in the beginning of the year helping put over Austin Theory, even if he kind of failed at that, but I don't think that's Cena's fault. And then helping put over LA Knight and helping cement him as the next top babyface of SmackDown, and helping put over the monster that was Solo Sikoa. To me, Cena did his job this year. That's what he was designed to do. That's what he's got left in the tank, and he did it well. Still, it's just, it's tough to put him in anything greater than good when the runs aren't that particularly long, when you know they're going to end soon, and when he doesn't end up doing anything super incredibly marquee. So I'll put it into the good category. Next up, we have Shane McMahon returning at WrestleMania. I kind of just put this one in for the memes. I have a feeling that had Shane McMahon not completely exploded his quad during that funny, silly little match with The Miz, I think that he might have been back full time. I'm honest with you, because that was at the same time that Vince McMahon was kind of allegedly regaining power within the WWE. So I wouldn't put it past them to be like, well, you know what, the people love Vince McMahon being back, and now that Vince is back, bring back Shane McMahon. So I wouldn't have put it past them if this was supposed to be a full-time return for Shane. However, his quad and his leg muscles exploded into 1,000 million pieces, and we didn't get that. So trash, but mostly just put this in here for the memes. Next up, we have the return of Carito, who also had, kind of like Cena, multiple returns throughout the year. His first return was a one-off appearance at Backlash, which was absolutely fantastic. The roof came off of that building when he came out to make the save on Bad Bunny and take out the Judgment Day. This is how you knew that like the people still love Carlito, because not only did the people in Puerto Rico lose their minds, but Twitter lost their minds, TikTok lost their minds. The entire internet wrestling community was buzzing on a high on the return of Carlito, to the point where people clamor to get Carlito back. And my understanding is that the WWE managed to sign Carlito shortly after Backlash because of the great reception that he got. However, they just never debuted him. Time kept passing and passing and passing, and people were wondering where Carlito was. We all knew he was signed, but then he just wasn't making an appearance until they finally brought him back for a storyline between the team of Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar and the LWO taking on Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. And he returned late to the match in a tag team match. with a different theme song, and it just didn't hit as hard when he made the run in at Backlash. Still, it's Carlito, and I'm happy to have Carlito back, and I love Carlito. He's one of my favorites of all time. But I also have to be critical of the fact that he hasn't done shit. He hasn't done anything. What has he done? I know like he's been injured and whatnot, but even prior to his injury, he was just sort of existing as part of the LWO storyline and not really contributing to too much. He should have been having feuds with Santos Escobar, a better feud with Bobby Lashley, which ultimately led to nothing. Carlito has unfortunately disappointed. His return of Backlash was scintillating, just so much fun and something I'll always remember. But everything that came afterwards, meh to the max. Next, we had the return of Lita, who came back for a program with Damage Control and Becky Lynch. She ended up winning the Women's Tag Team Championships, had a match at WrestleMania. It was cool to see Lita back, but her contributions kind of start and stop right there. She's more or less just a nostalgia act that was there for the better part of maybe like 2 months to help build up to a WrestleMania match, but really shortly after that, she was gone. In terms of her in-ring contributions, they weren't fantastic. Her storyline contributions left a lot to be desired as well. So like I kind of forget that Lita came back this year and had a prominent role on Monday Night Raw, because it still feels like she didn't, even though she did. And that kind of goes to show with kind of how forgettable her run was and how kind of lackluster her overall return run was. So I'm going to be putting, it's nice to see Lita back in the WWE, but I'm going to be putting her kind of alongside Carlito, because when I think of her return to the WWE, I kind of just shrug my shoulders and go, okay. Trish Stratus, on the other hand, God damn it, this woman is just too good at her job. She's just a fantastic character worker, and she's still a lot of fun in the ring. She came back as part of that same program with Lita, Becky Lynch, had that same match at WrestleMania, but then unlike Lita, Trish Stratus stayed around, and she stayed around for a long time. She stayed around for what felt like a 4-month long feud with Becky Lynch, a feud that helped put over not just Becky Lynch, but also introduced to the world the star that is Zoe Stark, and it culminated in an absolutely fantastic match at Payback in a cage match with Becky Lynch, probably the best women's cage match that I've ever seen, and one of the best matches of the year. She was also in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So like this woman was back, and she contributed a lot to the WWE and to the future of the women's division. Trish Stratus, thank you, Trish, goes into the great category. Next up, we have the return of Nia Jax, and I think that I'm in a minority here. I hated the return of Nia Jax at first. I hated the idea that she could be back to potentially accidentally hurt my favorite WWE women's superstar. But I have to eat my words and acknowledge the fact that she's been fine. Not only has she been fine, not only has she not hurt people, but I do think that she has improved significantly in the ring, and she has improved significantly as a character worker. And I do think that her in-ring presence is significantly better than it was before she was fired from the WWE. Has she had this monumentally good promo? No. Squash. We all remember that terrible promo, but still, I would say that people are a little bit too harsh on Nia Jax. I think so far that she has contributed very well to the women's division. She has helped establish some of the already kind of established women's stars like the Raquels of the world, like Zoe Stark, like Becky Lynch, like Rhea Ripley, and she's just a good addition, and she is something that was missing from the women's division. A monster in the women's division is something that was sorely needed and something that she added to the roster. So I do think that her return has been pretty good. She added something that we needed. She hasn't been bad, so putting her in the good category. Next up, we have someone that kind of defies the rules of this, because we have The Rock. Now, I said that I wasn't doing these one-offs, but I'm including The Rock one because it's The Rock returning after years of being away from the WWE, and it's The Rock, okay? So give me a break here. But also, at the moment, we thought when he did return that it could lead to something bigger with Roman Reigns, and maybe that is still the case. I don't think so, but I'm just saying, narratively, when he did come back, we thought it was for something more. It ultimately wasn't. Was it exciting to have The Rock back and to hear, if you smell what The Rock is cooking? Was it great to have him beat up Austin Theory? Yes, but none of that is anything that we were asking for or anything that we wanted. Am I a sad and pathetic wrestling fan for being like, well, that's not what we wanted? Yes, I'm aware that I'm being entitled here, but if The Rock is to come back to the WWE, it should be to have a program, to have a segment, to have a promo with the Bloodline. That's it. That's all we want to see. Nothing else from The Rock interests us at the moment. And in that return to SmackDown, not only was there no interaction with Roman Reigns, but there was no interaction with somebody like Jimmy, Solo, or even an interaction as simple as a Paul Heyman interaction. They did everything in their power to keep The Rock away from anything related to the Bloodline, and that was clearly intentional. And the fact that it was obviously intentional led many of us to believe that maybe it was going to happen down the road and down the line. However, I think a lot of us have lost that little boy feeling of like, oh my God, we're going to get Roman Reigns and The Rock. I think all of us have become jaded adults and understand that this is just not going to happen. As exciting and as entertaining and as cool as it was to see The Rock back, it added nothing in the grand schemes of the WWE. So I'm going to put this into the meh category, like super close to trash. The only reason it's not in meh is because it's The Rock, and The Rock is friggin' awesome, and he's my second favorite WWE superstar of all time. But I gotta be realistic with things, man. Kyrie Sane also returned to the WWE, but the WWE did her absolutely freaking dirty. They did her dirty because they brought her back at a Saudi Arabian show, and the Saudi crowd just does not care for women's wrestling, to the point where they had no idea who she was. So a return that many of us were expecting and clamoring for went kind of unheralded and uncelebrated because it was presented to the absolutely worst possible crowd that you could present something women's wrestling related to. They didn't care about the women's match that was happening, and they didn't care about Kyrie Sane returning. They didn't care that she helped Damage Control. They didn't care about anything. And that really put a damper into the excitement of the return. And to me, it kind of feels like that dampened excitement kind of carried into SmackDown and carried into the rest of the shows because they haven't really utilized her very well either. As excited as I am to have her back, because I love Kyrie Sane, I know that she's a fantastic worker and I know that she can have fantastic matches. Right off the get-go, she arrived with a whimper. Again, not her fault. I don't even blame the Saudi Arabian crowd because they know what they like and they know what they don't like. They know what they care about. They know what they don't care about. It should have been the WWE that should have understood that that was not the right crowd to bring back Kyrie Sane to. At the very least, we can say that Kyrie Sane has been part of the women's War Games match, and it's cool to have her back. And we know that it's probably going to lead to other bigger things. Like, let's not forget that, like, this happened in early November. Like, we're only a month and a bit into her return, so there's still a lot more room to grow here. It's just that the little time that we've had with Kyrie Sane, it's been wholeheartedly very underwhelming. So Kyrie Sane, meh category. If you told me that in a show that had the return of CM Punk, Randy Orton, that one of the biggest pops of the night was actually going to belong to R-Truth, I'd say, yeah, that makes sense because R-Truth is amazing and we should absolutely be loving R-Truth every single time we get a chance to. R-Truth was gone for the better part of over a year to an injury, and I did not realize how much I missed him until the second he came on screen and was immediately just such a lovable, fun presence. I love the way that they brought him back into that sponsored segment with Ruffles, with all of the right characters that he needed to interact with, all of the ridiculous characters in the WWE, like Pretty Deadly, like the Alpha Academy, like Tozawa. Absolutely brilliant to bring him back in the way that they did. I thought it was fantastic. But then to have him inserted into a really lovable sequence and feud with the Judgment Day, they just understand how to use R-Truth, and R-Truth just understands how to deliver the best comedic timing and comedic segments of the night time after time. I'm so happy to have R-Truth back, to the point where, like, just what we've had of him in the past month has made me so happy enough where, like, I can confidently say that his return is Hall of Fame worthy. Now we're on to the return of Randy Orton, who came back at Survivor Series alongside R-Truth as well. Survivor Series is pretty crazy, clearly. So I'm going to put the same criticism that I put on Cody on Randy Orton's return here. The announcement of his return definitely put a damper on the return. However, knowing that CM Punk was going to come back afterwards, kind of hindsight, now I understand why they would announce Randy Orton beforehand. It's also smart because there were, of course, rumors of CM Punk returning. And if you don't announce that Randy Orton was the last mystery partner for War Games, it would have sucked if the Chicago crowd, right before the countdown ended, they started chanting CM Punk only for Randy's music to hit. It would have just looked really bad. So I understand after the smoke is settled as to why they pre-announced Randy Orton, but it did remove a bit of the shine of his return. But it doesn't change the fact that this is Randy freaking Orton, a guy who is a legend in the business, a guy who is universally beloved, a guy that I truly don't think was appreciated. We didn't truly understand what we had with Randy until we lost Randy. And now to have him back, we can truly give him all of his flowers and everything he deserves. It's just so nice to have Randy back. Obviously, he adds this massive piece of star power to the Friday Night SmackDown roster, a roster that typically is missing star power because their champion Roman Reigns is never there. But it's also just nice to know that Randy's career didn't end. A lot of us, including myself, thought that that might have been the end of Randy Orton, and that would have just been cruddy. It would have been unceremonious. It would have been sad. So ultimately, I'm just happy to have Randy back. Randy, my man, just like in the future, you're going into the Hall of Fame. Your return's also going into the Hall of Fame, my man. I mean, you already knew I was going to put the CM Punk return into the Hall of Fame category, okay? You already knew that. It's the return of CM freaking Punk, gone after 10 years, after the bridge was not just burned, but nuked. Yes, I know I've said the whole nuked bridge like 50 times. You guys have pointed that out before. I understand, but I'm trying to make a point of how impossible the idea of CM Punk was returning as late as a year ago, 5 months ago, 6 years ago. Never in my wildest imaginations did I ever think that CM Punk was coming back to the WWE, and somehow the stars aligned. Somehow AEW fumbled the bag and dropped CM Punk into the lap of WWE. Not only the lap of WWE, but to the lap of WWE when they happened to be in Chicago. It was just too perfect. It is too perfect. And obviously he's already making waves. He's already feuding with the likes of Seth Rollins. And this is like the biggest return arguably in the history of the WWE. There is an argument to be made for it. Okay. Hall of Fame. I don't think anyone's going to argue that Punk's return is Hall of Fame. And it's like the biggest thing that happened in wrestling in the past, like literally like 10 years. It's crazy. All right. That's it. I'm done. What did I get wrong? You tell me in the comments. I probably missed some returns too. Anyways, that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.